Have you ever noticed how you and I live in an era where we can literally split the atom? I mean, we can harness the fundamental energy of the universe, but you put us in a mild traffic jam and we completely lose control of our own anger.
Oh, totally. We just melt down.
Right. Like we build these breathtaking engineering marvels, suspension bridges that stretch across raging oceans. Yet we often find it impossible to build a simple emotional bridge to the neighbor living right next door.
Yeah, that is the ultimate modern paradox.
We fly into the freezing vacuum of space, but the second we are forced to navigate the landscape of our own hearts, we're just completely lost. Welcome to the Meaning of Life Coach. I'm so glad you're joining us for this deep dive.
It's great to be here
Yeah,
because, we've achieved this absolute mastery over the external physical world while remaining entirely besieged by our internal one.
exactly. And our topic today is unpacking an ancient, brilliant framework for character building. We're going to triangulate that spiritual wisdom with modern psychology, sociology, and honestly, some fairly staggering global statistics.
And we really want to explore why all of our massive systemic modern crises might actually just be, at their core, a crisis of human character.
But just to set the tone for you listening right now, we aren't here to dictate absolute dogmatic truths.
Right, no preaching here. We're offering a deeply compelling perspective. The fundamental premise is just profound in its simplicity, that transforming your inner self isn't just some private wellness goal, it's practically the only viable mechanism we have to heal a broken outer world.
To figure out how to fix that outer world, let's explore the foundational nature of a human being. There's this ancient concept of the original state, or pure nature, and I love this because it totally flips the script on the modern self-improvement industry.
How so?
Well, it argues we shouldn't be trying to add some new artificial software to our brains. We're actually just removing rust to return to our baseline. Like, think about a newborn baby. They don't harbor greed, right, or arrogance.
No, of course not. The underlying assumption is that human beings are fundamentally wired for truth and goodness. Those toxic traits you mentioned, the envy, the malice, the crushing ego, those are acquired over time. They're the rust. So purifying the character isn't about becoming someone else. It's really a process of excavation.
Digging through the junk to find what's already there.
Exactly. But that return to your baseline nature is permanently tied to this massive, terrifying responsibility, which classical philosophy refers to as the divine trust.
Oh, the imagery surrounding this trust is wild. Like, ancient texts describe this burden of free will and moral responsibility being offered to the heavens and the mountains.
And the mountains were terrified of it.
Right. These massive, unshakable geological formations outright rejected it. They preferred the safety of instinctive, automatic submission to the laws of physics. But humans, we stepped up. We accepted the risk of freedom.
It's an incredible, almost reckless gamble when you think about it. Free will is terrifying purely because it contains the absolute guarantee that you can fail.
Yeah, a mountain doesn't have a choice.
Exactly. A mountain does not have to consciously choose to be a mountain today. Gravity makes the decision for it. But you, as a human being, you have to consciously choose to act with integrity in every single interaction.
There's a brilliant analogy from the classical scholar Ibn Miskawayh that illustrates this tension perfectly. He suggests that you and I exist on a tightrope suspended exactly between animals and angels.
Oh, I love that image.
It's so good. If you look at animals, they follow blind instinct. They eat, they survive, they reproduce. They don't possess complex morality, but they also lack malice. Like, a lion only kills because it's hungry.
Right, it's not killing out of ideology.
Exactly. And angels, on the flip side, represent pure reason. They don't have base desires, meaning they never have to fight temptation to do the right thing.
Which leaves the human being caught right in the agonizing middle. We possess both a brilliant, angelic intellect and these burning, animalistic desires.
And because of that volatile mixture, we have the capacity to fall significantly lower than any animal. I mean, we can use our brilliant intellects to design weapons or to exploit economies, things a lion would never even comprehend.
Yeah, that's the dark side of the intellect.
But the beautiful side of that duality is that if we choose the good despite our burning desires, we actually rise higher than angels.
Because the angels don't have to fight a war inside themselves to be good. We do.
Right. We have to earn it.
And when you frame human existence through that lens, it recontextualizes everything you do. This unique tightrope act means that building your character isn't just a weekend lifestyle trend you try out because some wellness influencer posted about it.
A 10-step morning routine or whatever.
Right. It is your soul cosmic calling, Without actively refining that character, you're essentially embezzling that original trust every single day.
Man, that's heavy. So if human dignity relies entirely on choosing reason over those base desires, we have to address the elephant in the room. Why are we failing so spectacularly today?
Yeah, looking at the state of the world, that tightrope is snapping.
Definitely. Classical wisdom argues it's because our internal defense system has been completely hacked. Al-Ghazali lays out this perfect metaphor. He pictures the human heart as a king. The intellect, our reason and logic, serves as the angelic advisor to the king.
Okay, I follow.
And our blind animalistic desires act as the invading enemy's primary weapon.
Right, and the psychological tragedy happens when the king allows that trusted advisor to be taken hostage by those desires.
Oh, that's when things go off the rails.
Completely. When your intellect is captured by your ego, it doesn't just shut down, it actively switches sides. Your brilliant capacity for logic suddenly becomes a clever lawyer for your worst habits.
A clever lawyer for the ego. I feel that in my bones. I mean, I think about the mental gymnastics I do when I know I'm in the wrong. We literally rebrand our own sins.
We do it systematically. You might look at your own ruthless greed and rebrand it in your mind as, necessary hustle or corporate ambition.
They're like labeling arrogance as healthy self-confidence.
Exactly. Outright exploitation gets labeled as being a clever disruptor. Your intellect is incredibly skilled at crafting an airtight legal defense for whatever your ego has already decided it wants to do.
Which accelerates this whole process of spiritual decay. Ancient scholars mapped out stages of this internal death, and what terrifies me is that it doesn't start with some massive Hollywood-level crime.
No, it's much more subtle.
Yeah, it starts with a simple concept, heedlessness. Just living completely on autopilot. A slow, creeping numbness.
Heedlessness is the quiet slipping away of your awareness. It's forgetting your higher purpose, letting the noise of the day dictate your reactions, and eventually just forgetting your own core identity entirely.
And when we bring in modern statistics, this ancient concept of heedlessness is incredibly relevant. We spend, on average, almost 7 hours a day looking at screens.
Wow, 7 hours.
That's 46 hours a week. I looked at my own phone usage yesterday, and my brain was literally craving a dopamine hit every time there was a lull in a conversation. These AB algorithms are engineered by some of the smartest people on Earth to entirely bypass our reason, our angelic advisor, and directly stimulate our base desires.
Tech giants are basically monetizing our heedlessness.
Exactly.
And the physiological truth underneath those screen time stats is chilling. A heart that never experiences a moment of profound silence cannot hear anything profound.
That's a great way to put it.
When you're constantly bombarded with notifications, endless scrolling, manufactured outrage, and cheap dopamine, your internal sensitivity is eroded. Constant distraction isn't merely a productivity issue, it operates as a spiritual anesthetic.
Numbing us out.
Right, it guides you directly into that final stage of spiritual death where the internal compass just shatters. You lose the ability to distinguish good from evil because you've drowned out the quiet voice of your own reason. Forgetting the divine ultimately means you lose sight of yourself.
So the individual heart goes numb. But this inner death doesn't just stay trapped inside our own heads. It infects everything around us, moving outward like a virus. It scales up from the micro to the macro, and it starts intimately.
Right, with our closest relationships.
Yeah, the ego, once it takes control, demands endless, frantic validation. And what does that actually look like in the real world? The World Health Organization has officially declared loneliness a global health crisis. They estimate it plays a role in nearly 871,000 deaths a year.
The irony is just suffocating. I mean, we possess digital networks connecting billions of avatars, yet nearly 40% of the global population reports living with intense chronic stress.
Because we aren't really connected.
No, the ego isolates you by design. When your internal compass is broken, you treat other human beings not as connections, but as utilities to validate your status.
Yeah.
You can be standing in a crowded room surrounded by people and feel entirely alone because you're seeking extraction, not genuine relationship.
And when you start treating people as utilities, societal trust completely evaporates. The sociologist Robert Putnam studied this in his work on social capital. He observed that when individual integrity fails on a mass scale, the invisible infrastructure of trust that holds a community together just crumbles.
And without that internal character guiding behavior, society has to physically force people to behave. Look at the structures that replace trust.
Like what?
Massive, bloated bureaucracies, thick, incomprehensible legal contracts for simple agreements, ubiquitous security cameras on every corner. We spend billions building heavy, oppressive systems purely because we can no longer rely on the person sitting next to us to do the right thing when nobody is watching.
The toll this takes on the most fundamental unit of society, the family, is brutal. In many Western countries, 45% of marriages end in divorce. In places like Japan and Spain, marriage rates have plummeted by up to 50%.
It's staggering.
And it isn't just an economic shift. It's an ego issue. It's a profound fear of vulnerability coupled with a total lack of resilient patience.
Well, if you enter a relationship viewing it merely as a transaction designed to service your own needs, disaster is inevitable.
Right, the second it gets hard.
Exactly. The moment that partnership requires painful sacrifice or deep patience with another flawed human being, the clever lawyer in your brain immediately drafts the paperwork to break the contract.
Then we reach the terrifying global scale, corruption on Earth. The stats are mind-numbing. $2.7 trillion spent globally on militaries.
Unbelievable.
230,000 human beings killed in conflicts last year alone. Over 120 countries ranked as highly corrupt. And our environmental destruction is driven by this collective addiction to excess.
It's a bleak picture.
But I have to challenge the premise here. When we talk about global war, climate change, geopolitical corruption, aren't those massive, complex, systemic issues? Like, is it really fair to boil the global military-industrial complex down to, I need to work on my personal character flaws?
That is the critical pushback. But it requires us to demystify what a system actually is. A system does not have consciousness. A corporation does not have intent.
Okay.
A broken institution is simply the macroscopic scaling of unrefined human character. War, institutional corruption, environmental exploitation. These are not faceless glitches in a matrix. They are individual greed, individual arrogance, and individual heedlessness multiplied by millions of people and armed with systemic power.
Wow.
You mathematically cannot build a just, equitable system out of corrupt, ego-driven components.
So if the stakes are literally the fate of the world, why do you and I resist doing this inner work so stubbornly?
Because the ego is terrified of the painful truth of self-reflection, so it builds massive defense mechanisms.
Yeah, when I first started exploring this framework, my immediate thought was, listen, I'm generally a good person. I don't need to do some intense daily purification.
That is the most common evasion tactic, and the spiritual framework offers a fascinating response to it. It introduces the concept of the self-reproaching soul, basically, your guilty conscience.
Right.
The mere fact that you feel a twinge of guilt when you snap at someone or lie proves your heart isn't completely dead. But settling for "I'm not a bad person" is a tragic underestimation of your potential. A lack of active evil in your life is not the same thing as the presence of active excellence.
That hits hard.
Yeah.
The second defense mechanism is the feeling of sheer insignificance. I look at the news and think, what can one person actually do in a world this messed up?
It comes back to the domino effect. The macro change we just discussed is causally dependent on the micro change. You alter your internal character, which fundamentally changes how you behave.
Yeah.
That new behavior shifts the dynamic in your family, which slowly alters the culture of your community.
Yeah.
You cannot leapfrog the messy work of individual transformation to somehow save the collective.
The third defense mechanism is pure cynicism. Like, it's too late, I've made too many mistakes, my habits are set in stone, and I'm too far gone.
This is where the concept of return is vital. Within this framework, despair is considered one of the ego's most dangerous tricks.
Really? Despair is a trick.
Absolutely. The idea is that as long as you have breath in your lungs, you have the opportunity to polish the mirror of your heart. No amount of accumulated rust makes the metal underneath permanently worthless.
But let me play devil's advocate here. Modern culture is trying to address this burnout and ego. We have corporate mindfulness seminars, silent meditation retreats, hundreds of mental health apps. Isn't society actively trying to fix the inner self?
It's an attempt, but often a highly superficial one. Classical wisdom points out that seeking isolation from the world, like going on a luxurious silent retreat while your heart remains deeply attached to worldly status and desires, is just hidden greed.
Hidden greed.
Yes, you're essentially just resting your ego so it can hustle harder and be more productive on Monday morning.
Oh, man. Resting your ego to hustle harder. Ouch.
Real transformation requires painful, honest confrontation with your actual character flaws. It's not about finding a temporary oasis of calm. It's about permanently altering the landscape of your soul.
So how do we actually alter that landscape? The ancient frameworks outline a daily combat rhythm. It's not vague. It's a set of highly practical tools. The first is setting the condition in the morning.
Right. This is a proactive strike. You wake up, and before you expose yourself to the chaos of the day, you make a concrete, highly specific pact with yourself.
Give me an example.
You don't just say, I will be a good person today. That's way too vague. You say, today, when my manager criticizes my work, I will not let my pride dictate my response. You set the specific terms of engagement for your known weaknesses.
Okay, let's say I make that pact. Then I go into the day, and I need the second tool, which is vigilance.
Vigilance is how you snap out of the autopilot we discussed earlier. It's moving through your day with the acute, constant awareness that you are being observed.
Like paranoia.
No, not in a paranoid surveillance state way,
Mhm.
but as a protective shield. When that manager does criticize you, vigilance provides that crucial 2-second pause between their stimulus and your reaction. It allows your angelic advisor to speak before your animalistic defense mechanism kicks in.
And then the day ends, and we use the third tool, self-accounting.
A ruthless evening evaluation. You sit down in silence and audit your day. Where did I succeed in keeping my morning condition? Where did my ego win? You take complete accountability without allowing your clever lawyer to make any excuses for your failures.
The fourth tool acts as a multiplier for everything else, companionship. There's a famous philosophical analogy here about the company you keep. If you spend your time hanging out with a perfume seller, even if you don't buy anything, you're going to walk away smelling great.
Exactly.
But if you hang out with a blacksmith, either a stray spark is going to burn a hole in your clothes, or you're going to walk away smelling heavily of smoke and sweat. You inevitably absorb the scent of your environment.
Because your environment normalizes behaviors. If you're committing to this grueling internal work, you cannot surround yourself with people who celebrate the very ego-driven behaviors, the gossip, the greed, the arrogance that you are actively trying to dismantle. Your peers act as either a headwind or a tailwind in this process.
So we do the grueling work. We set the morning condition, we maintain vigilance, we audit ourselves at night. What does the finish line actually look like? The wisdom refers to the ultimate goal as the tranquil, peaceful soul, which achieves a state of profound contentment. But do we get a perfect life out of this?
We need to be incredibly clear about what that contentment actually means. It does not mean you unlock a magical existence where you never get sick, your bank account is endlessly full, and nobody ever betrays you. The external trials of life remain exactly as they were.
The traffic jams and the broken systems are still there.
They are, but your internal response is entirely transformed. When the ego's dominance is finally broken, you meet external hatred with an unshakable internal peace.
Yeah.
When you experience material lack, you meet it with elegant patience rather than desperate, isolating panic. You're no longer tossed around by every external storm because your anchor is entirely internal.
It really hammers home the point that sitting around waiting for the perfect political candidate to be elected or the perfect economic system to be implemented to finally make everything okay is totally pointless. The highest return on investment you will ever get in your entire life is the brutal, quiet work you do transforming your own heart.
Absolutely. Because in doing so, you heal a small but absolutely crucial piece of the world.
Transforming the human heart really is the only lasting revolution there is.
It's the only one that actually works.
It really is. So as we wrap up this deep dive on the meaning of life, Coach, I don't want to leave you with a generic sign-off. I want to leave you with a provocative thought to carry with you. Tonight, when the lights finally go out, your phone is in another room, and the loud, frantic world goes completely silent. Ask yourself one totally honest question, and don't let your clever lawyer make a single excuse.
I love that.
Was I the person I want to be today? Think about that. And if you want to explore these concepts even further, be sure to read the full article for this episode at meaningallife.coach. We'll see you next time.